and thank you so much for joining me. My name is Sharon Rogers, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Wells, Maine in the United States. And every second and fourth Tuesday, I bring you a free class via my YouTube channel. Now, the second Tuesday of every month is a Technique Tuesday, where I focus on a certain technique and show you some variations with that technique. Tonight's technique is heat embossing. This is a technique that is so simple, yet it really makes a big impact. In fact, this is probably the one technique that got my mother hooked on stamping at a later age. So she would just think it was magic when I heat embossed. And to be honest, I think most people feel that way. I even feel that way, and I've been doing it for a really long time. Let's get started so I can show you just how wonderful this technique is. We're going to start with the basics tonight, because I know that not everybody watching may have embossed. I have a current team member who last year was a customer of mine, who had been a demonstrator many years before that with someone else, and she confessed at a class where I was embossing that she had never heat embossed, and I was floored because she's been stamping a long time. So anyway, she loves it. Now she has a heat tool and she has embossing powders, and she loves it. And especially this time of year, you'll find a lot of people using gold and silver embossing in the fall, sometimes the copper embossing with the gold. But you'll find this especially around the holidays because it just makes for such an elegant statement on a card, especially with a sentiment, that kind of thing. I am going to prep my cardstock with my embossing buddy. Now, this is part of the Embossing Editions toolkit that comes with a brush and reverse tweezers. So in case you don't know how reverse tweezers work, because I didn't for a long time, you just squeeze them and they open up, and then when you let them go, it holds it shut. This is just so you're not going to burn yourself. And then it comes with a tray, and the tray does have a cap, but I just never put the cap on. But you'll dump your powder over your cardstock into this tray so that you can funnel the excess back into the jar, not wasting anything. And honestly, a jar of embossing powder like this is going to last you for, even if you emboss a lot, at least a year. And that's embossing a lot. But many people have theirs for several years. Now, embossing powder can turn bad. So if you're noticing that your gold is looking very dull or tarnished, it's time to get new embossing powder. That's just a little tip that I learned many, many years ago, probably before I was even a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. So I'm going to take this Embossing Buddy, which is an anti-static and anti-moisture. It's kind of like, the things baseball players rub on their hands to take away the moisture. So we're just going to prep our cardstock with that. That will allow us to get a better image and minimize the number of stray flecks that may be on our paper. You'll also need an embossing medium, and Versamark is our embossing medium. It's a traditional medium. It is an ink that stays wetter longer, which allows the powder to stick to it and thus enabling you to get a good image. I'm going to ink up my Spotlight on Nature large stamp here. Now, there's a lot of fine detail in this stamp. So most of what's going to be pretty about this is just the flower, the gold flower itself. So Versamark is clear, so you're not going to be able to see it until you run the powder over it. Now you can, if you hold it to the light, you might be able to see the shine. But when you pour over the embossing powder, so as you're watching this, let me know your thoughts of the first time you saw embossing in action. Did you think it was magic? Was it the thing that sold you on stamping? It is one of the first projects I ever did stamping. I was a class advisor when I was teaching high school math, and I created a note card basically with a big W that was embossed in red on the front because it was for Wells Warriors, and they're red and white. And I'll tell you a little bit later about how I embossed that, but can I just tell you, a heat tool is worth its weight in gold. The Stampin' Up! Heat tool has 2 heat settings, a low and a high. 1 is low and 2 is high, 0 is off. It also has a protective shield over here so that you're not going to burn your fingers on the very hot metal piece that's in here. And it has a little stand. It takes just a second to warm up initially. I'll plug it in. I'm going to turn it on just a little bit. Now the key to embossing is you want to heat evenly and you don't want to overheat. The embossing powder is made up of small plastic particles, and so the heat melts the plastic. But if you melt it too much, it melts into the paper and then you're not going to get a raised look. I'm going to apply my heat, and I don't want to focus it straight down at the paper because I don't want the heat bouncing back into my heat tool. Just as with a hair dryer, that's not good for the heating mechanism and will shorten the length of the life of your heat tool. So now I'm watching as it turns gold and shiny, and when it turns gold and shiny, I will go to a different area to emboss. If I were to keep it on the gold and shiny part, it would start melting into the paper, ruining the overall effect. So now that's pretty just the way it is. And honestly, this makes a beautiful wedding card if it's just gold on white. With no colors, it looks beautiful just the way it is. You can see how the light catches it. We could add a little sentiment layer here and be good to go. But you can color over this. Now, if you're using your blends, you want to probably use the, let me see, what color should we use here? Let's go with Calypso Coral. You don't want to use the brush tip end because the bumps are going to, they may damage the tips. So I recommend using the bullet point to color. And now this is the dark. I don't want to start with the dark. I'm going to start with the light. That's just usually my preference. And I'm just coloring right over here. And so it's not a big deal if I do run over the lines with this bullet tip because the bullet tip is much sturdier. It's not a brush tip. It's a nib. Now there is a little trick. You can't just color and go here because that embossing powder is not going to, that embossing powder isn't accepting the color, so it's just kind of floating on top. So that means you'll need to wipe off some of that excess. And I'll show you that in a minute. Just add some darker color here, and then I'm going to bring in the light again and blend away. Just giving some nice shading to our flower. All right, and then we need something for the leaves, obviously. Let's bring in, let's see what color I have. I have some old olive. Actually, I think I have an old olive that's already opened. Let me see. Nope, that's Granny Apple Green. So we're going to use this old olive here. Old olive, Calypso Coral, make for nice fall colors. And again, I'm going to start with the lighter end. And And I'll go back in and do a little shading with the darker one. Now remember, most of this is the gold though. There's not a whole lot, because of all the detail in the leaves, there's not a whole lot of space being colored in here. We'll add in some dark, probably mostly to these larger leaves, a little part of the smaller leaves. All right, and go back and blend to make it all smooth, so you don't see any harsh lines. All right. Now I'm going to take a piece of paper towel and just sort of blot that a little bit. I'm not moving the paper towel a lot. I'm just pressing on the back. And you may see some color, you may not. If I rub a little bit more, I might see a little. I don't really see too much. So it looks like it dried and it's doing okay. All right. But isn't that pretty? Look at the shine. And then we can just complete that card. I'm going to turn my attention to the sentiment that I want on my card and bringing in the layering leaves sentiment, because I want this to be a wedding card. So happy to celebrate you is a great sentiment. And all you need to do is gold emboss it. What I like about the layering leaves is the fonts are thick, so you'll get lots and lots of beautiful gold embossing coming through on your card. Ink that up. Oop, I didn't use my embossing, and especially since we're heading towards winter, when static is going to be a problem for a lot of people. In the summer, it's more the oils and the moisture from your hands, but in the winter, it is definitely the static that is more of a problem. We want to remove that. So now we'll ink it up in the Versamark. Again, can't really see it right now, but we will in just a second. Where is it? Let's find it. And there we go. Now, while I love my Embossing Editions toolkit, if you don't have one, and you know, I understand that you can't buy everything all at once, you can use a coffee filter. It is definitely a little bit something you have to be a little bit more careful with, because it's certainly very flexible, but you can do that. You can do ordinary typing paper with like a crease in the middle. But again, I love my toolkit. It just holds all the embossing there until I want to send it back to the jar where it came from. I picked this up and turned it on at the same time, and it scared me. Wasn't expecting that. So again, we're just going to heat up an area, and once we start to see it turn nice and shiny, we will move it on. Oh, see, it's starting to turn. So hopefully you can see the change, the transformation. Now, my finger's getting very hot here. The smaller the piece of paper, and sometimes you'll have small pieces of paper, the better this option is right here to use the reverse tweezers. All right. Now, usually what I do before I put my heat tool away is I just make sure everything's shiny, because if some little part is not shiny, that means it's going to rub off. You want to make sure it's all done. And this is. It just takes a second to dry. This is now dry and cooler to the touch. It's still a little warm, but you can still touch it. You just want to avoid touching it immediately after you're done embossing. All right, and my piece of paper is just a little bit too large here. I need to trim it down so that I can get my punch in there. All right, let's see if that's better. I just want to center that in there. There we go. I'll just center that right in there. Okay. I brought in some gold foil, a layer of gold foil, and a thick basic white card base. Let me get my bone folder out, give that a nice crisp fold so it lays flatter. And then here is my gold base. And here is it's cut just a little bit larger than this piece. And so look, we've just got that. And we can pop up this right here, this sentiment. If you wanted to make that a little bit smaller, you could. You could also fussy cut around it, which I'm not going to do. But I might look to see if a smaller circle punch works. Now I'm using punches, but you can certainly go ahead and use dies. Now that this is already punched, it's going to make it a little bit more difficult. So here's what you can do, if I can get it out so I can show you. All right, I need a little bit of a handle here. I'm going to take a sticky note. This is actually a full sticky note, so it's sticky just about everywhere. And I'm going to put that right down here. And then that's going to allow me to stick the whole thing in and maneuver it where I need to. Now, if the bottom of this is sticking a little bit, you can just fold it over on itself. Gives you still a handle. Come in from the side. And let's see, let's go ahead and arrange that. There's something sticky in there. That looks about right. All right, it's almost centered. There we go. So yeah, I think I like the smaller one a little bit better. And we will put that right up on dimensionals. Now, there's this big old gold piece that I'm hiding up. I'm covering most of this, right? So if you want to save some of that gold, you can simply take your paper trimmer. Here's another little tip for you on this Technique Tuesday. Pick up the arm of your cutter, lay it down in there a little bit from the edge, cut down, rotate. And you're going to cut in a little bit here. So I'm not coming too close to any edges. And so now I have just saved some of this beautiful foil for another project. We're going to adhere this. I haven't used my Stamp and Seal for a while. I'll go ahead and use my Stamp and Seal. This is not Seal Plus, this is just regular Stamp and Seal. You just press, stop, and kind of lift up. And let's see here, we're just going to center this. The reason why I'm not using Seal Plus is because it's really hard to unstick once you've stuck it. And it looks pretty good, not bad. I need to get the little excess piece off here. And I'm going to get my dimensionals out. Put some dimensionals on here. So the embossing is a wow factor. It's a wow when you do it yourself and you see the color change. And then it's a wow when you give it to someone. I mean, it's just stunning. You pay a lot more for fancy store greeting cards if they've got this gold embossing on it. Just put a little bit more Stamp and Seal around the edges here so we can mount it on our card base. And that's simple embossing. So it's really the simple embossing on the sentiment layer because it's just embossing. And so the little bonus here is showing you how to color once you've embossed. It's the same way that you always color. You just have to be a little bit careful about going over the little bumps and making sure that it's dry and not going to smear onto your project. And so there's a really pretty, simple wedding card that looks way more complicated than it was. So, what do you think about heat embossing? It's magic, right? This class is free to watch, and I'm so glad that you're watching. If you're finding that you need some stamping supplies, perhaps some heat embossing supplies, or anything else, and you would like to support my small business, then all you need to do is place an order of $35 or more using the link that is found in the description of this video. You might have to click that little word "more" to get to it. Then I will send you a free class card kit that will include all the cardstock, envelopes, and embellishments needed to create the cards that you see here tonight. You can use stamp sets that you already own, or you can purchase them as part of the $35. If your order is $60 or more, I'm going to include a package of embellishments for free as well. I'm not going to guarantee which ones those are because sometimes they go in and out of stock, and so I don't want to get your hopes up, but they will be fantastic as all Stampin' Up's embellishments are. All right, let's get back to the class. For this next project, I'm going to do something similar but show you how you can use two different colors of embossing to create to show you that you can create an entirely different look with two colors and look and feel. So we're going from a wedding card to a sympathy card. I'm going to use the same stamp. I'm going to emboss it in gold just as I did before. So you can see that I poured most of it back into the jar with this catching the excess. And so then I just pick it up, tap it, and it funnels right back in. Right. We'll heat it. This is a larger piece, so I'm not really burning my hand. Notice that I've got my hand and my gun kind of parallel to each other. That will also keep me from burning myself. I'm seeing it start to move. So when the gold embossing powder gets shiny, starts to move, it looks like it's moving because you see where it goes from matte to shiny. Just keep moving. Move with the move. Right. I'm going to color as I did before. Okay, and now the part that most of you are going to either think I'm wonderful for, or you'll be thinking just the opposite. We're going to fussy cut this out. And I'm not going to be too terribly concerned with the beauty of my fussy cutting. You will see why shortly. We're going to cover over all my imperfections with a marker. All right, now that really did not take a very long time. I know it will feel like an eternity for those of you who actually don't like to fussy cut, but it did not take that long. I'm going to bring in a black Stampin' Blend marker, and I'm bringing in the dark black. I need a piece of scrap paper to protect my work surface. I should use my glass mat, but it's down below and I don't want to get it out and disturb anything. I'm going to take my black marker, and because I'm not going over the embossing here, I can go ahead and use the brush tip end. I'm just going to be very gentle with my brush tip. If you don't want to have to take the time to be very gentle, then you can certainly use the other nib and go faster. You know, I should be using a piece, the glass mat probably would be better because now I'm trying to color white on white, and that's a little bit of a problem. Now, if I had cut right up against the gold in some of these areas where I can, I probably would have found this much easier to color because there would have been less to color. Oh well. Maybe I learned a lesson for next time. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Now, one of the things I do want to make sure of is that the edges are black, and it looks like because I'm using Stampin' Blends, the edges it does go through the black. I do see a spot that I missed, so let's go ahead and just color over that. All right. Now I'm going to get out a base for my cardstock, and can anyone guess what color that's going to be? Correct. I'm going to be using a base card of black. And so look at how that just pops on that. Now you can see where you may need to go over some black pieces again, because maybe you didn't quite get it as black as you thought you did. All right. Let's color this in a little bit more. Now the black is going to stand off the page a little bit, but it really is not going to show up too much. It does get lost, especially once you affix this down to the card base. Now, what I'm going to do here, though, to make it different than that last card, is I'm going to bring in my stamp again. And instead of using my gold or my silver or my copper, I'm going to get the other package of powder and bring in my black. I'm going to ink up my stamp again, and of course I want to de-static my card base. I'm going to rub that over. Now, if you notice that you get some white on there, it will brush off, so don't worry about that. Better to have this than powder sticking to it. I'm going to just bring this kind of down over the top, just like that. And put my cover back on. Let's bring in our, now I really want to make sure that this is empty, so I will give it a good tap and maybe even a little rub inside. And get my black out and pour the black on. I got some of it back in the jar. But look how pretty that black on black is. In fact, you could do just a whole card with that. Now, when I'm heat embossing, I want to make sure that this tray is not in the line of my heat. So I'm setting it somewhere safely aside, turning on my heat tool. And now we're going to emboss. And what you will notice is it doesn't take nearly as long for the embossing powder to start turning because the gun is already sort of warm. So when you emboss, you're going to get a shiny look to it, which normally I try to stay away from some shine on sympathy cards, but this is just such a beautiful look. I think it celebrates the life of the person while also recognizing that there's a sadness to their loss. So you can well, I have my card fold on this side now, but you could put it any which way you want. So I can kind of mimic, this one kind of comes down, this one kind of comes over. So I'll probably do that right there. Let's adhere this, and I'm going to adhere it with dimensionals. You could adhere it just down normally if you wanted to. And you know what? Because I'm using black cardstock, I don't want to use these white dimensionals. They might be seen. We do not want that to happen. So did you know that we carry black Stampin' Dimensionals? And one package of the black Stampin' Dimensionals comes in two sizes. It comes in the large ones and the mini ones. There might be places on this where I want to attach a mini. I think I might be okay with all larger ones. All right, let me take that off. What's nice about the black ones is that you can see the backing, so you can see which backings you've already taken off. Sometimes it's hard with the white ones. All right, so we got that and that. And now we just need a sentiment. I'm going to take another little piece of black cardstock. Well, it's not very little, but I'm going to take a little sliver off this, and we're going to put a sympathy statement on. One of the wonderful new sentiment, or relatively new sentiment sets that we have is this Comforting Thoughts. It's really great for when people are going through a very difficult time. And it doesn't specifically say with sympathy here, but you could certainly do I'm so sorry or wishing you comfort on the outside. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Now with the old embossing powder that we used to carry, a lot of times a very fine sentiment like this would just end up as a blob. So that wasn't very fun. I've got a 3/8 inch strip here, de-static it. I'm pretty sure I just made that word up, de-static. I made it a verb too, which I don't think is right. But hey, my video. I can do what I want, I guess. Let's see. So I'm going to ink it up in the Versamark. This is a 3/8 inch wide piece. I'm going to come over here on the end just in case I have to use the other end because I didn't get this straight. I think I got it pretty good. Oh no, I didn't. Not at all. Not at all. It's so hard filming around the camera sometimes. Let's see. Oh, that one's good. We'll put our ink cover on. Bring this back in. Here's my gold powder. All right. And now we just need to heat this. Now, because I'm heating a very small piece, I am going to use these reverse tweezers. Even though it's long enough, I probably could do it without burning myself. The other thing you want to make sure is that you're not covering the air vents that are up at the top here. It needs to be able to breathe, to suck in the air and heat up the powder. I'm so sorry. The message has been revealed. Now I can see that it looks very good. I'm going to trim off this end about the same length as the other end. All right. We will bring in our card. Put this on here. I'm so sorry. And this is when we're going to use our small itty bitty black dimensionals. Let's put these on the back. I don't put them too close to the end, especially on the end that is going near the flowers, because these are already popped up. So we have that right there. Now, I was inspired by a card that I saw online from a different crafter, I think, different craft company. And one of the things that they used were some gold sequins. I'm going to get out my gold sequins. And again, not something that you would probably think to put on a sympathy card. But, and I know I should be probably using my take your pick tool instead of scissors, but this works too. Let's see. Ah, that one jumped off. Now, if you recall, we should not be doing an even number, so let's bring in another little one here. So these are not overly sparkly sequins, but I think they finish off the card rather beautifully. And so then we can just add a white layer or a Calypso coral layer with white on top on the inside and stamp a message inside. All right, and I do see now, again, I see a couple of spots that I missed. I'll just come in here and fix them. I don't have to fix everything. In fact, I don't want to hit the spots that I'm not supposed to. Just if there's a little white edge showing. fix it up. There's your card. Here I have a piece of basic white. It is 3 3/4 by 5. And I'm going to bring in a With Deepest Sympathy. And I'm going to bring in my black pad, my Memento black. And I think that will go in right there. And then go ahead and we will now just do regular stamping with our little flower. And how am I going to position this time? I want to make sure that I don't overtake it too much, because I will want to write a note. So there we just have another little portion of the flower down there, and then we can color that in with our blends. I can use the brush tip here. To be honest, I probably use the bullet tip far more than I use the brush tip. Habit. Here, sometimes though it's whatever I open. The more you blend, the better you get at it. These blends really will make you feel like an artist. Let's see. I didn't really get a chance to color in the stems before because there's just so much gold embossing powder there. But I can go over it here. Very carefully. And you almost don't even need to shade that because the artists have actually put so much shading in there. Well, let's go ahead and just put a little bit in there for some added oomph. New word. Oomph. There we go. And we can just put this in here very simply like this. I'm probably not going to mat it with a piece of Calypso Coral just because that will brighten it up too much, I think. This With Sincere Sympathy is from the Heartfelt Hexagon set, which also has a wedding sentiments in it as well. We could have used. But there we go. There's our second card. I have just one more project for you tonight. However, for those of you who are placing an order in my online store by this coming Sunday, October 13th at 9 p.m., using the link in the description of this video, I'm going to provide you with a bonus tutorial of one more variation of embossing, and that's embossing in multiple colors. I'll also provide you in your class card kit with the supplies for that card. Now let's get back to our third and final project. For this last card, I'm going to talk about what you can do if you don't want to emboss in silver, gold, or copper, or black, or white, or clear. Maybe you want to have a nice embossed image that is, say, Petunia Pop, or Real Red, or Pretty Peacock. Well, what do you do then? I like Pretty Peacock right now, so let's go ahead and do Pretty Peacock. So we don't have an embossing powder for this, but that's okay because we can make it. We will need our Versamark pad, and we will need our clear embossing powder. And notice what I've done is I've written a W, looks like an M there, but here's a W for white. And this one's the clear, because that way I can look at it quickly. And what you need to do here is open your ink pad and open your Versamark pad. You're going to take your stamp. This one is from the Enduring Beauty set. And we're going to ink it up in Versamark first. Remember, Versamark is what stays wetter longer. So that's what allows the embossing powder to stick to it. Now I'm going to ink it with my, what's this called again? Pretty Peacock. And I'm going to quickly stamp it. Oh, I didn't rub my embossing buddy over it. Hopefully it won't matter. Shouldn't. I haven't touched this paper too much. Now I'm going to add the clear right over the top. And when I pull it away, you can, I don't know if you can tell, but it's not as bright as it was because the clear is covering the Pretty Peacock. Just going to funnel this back in. All right. And then we're going to get our heat tool out and heat this up. Now, I mentioned at the top of this that I had started my embossing journey by embossing a lot of note cards with red embossing powder. Well, that would have been great if it weren't for how I was doing it. So I had red embossing powder. That wasn't the problem. I didn't have a heat tool. That was the problem. So I thought, oh, I need heat. I held this over a stove burner. And I had something like, I don't know, over 50, or was it over 100? I can't remember. It was a long time ago. And I did them each individually. And I do not recommend that method. I burned some cards. I made messes. It was just awful. So I'm going to take just a second. Oh, now I can see it start to pop. So this one is not going to be as noticeable as far as the embossing goes. I can see some shine on it. It's not going to be quite as noticeable because, for a couple of reasons. The lines are thinner in this stamp, and it really is just clear embossing powder over ink. So just trying to see if all of it is set, and I think it is. Looks like it. But the recipient, though, will be able to tell that it's embossed because you can feel that it's raised. Now, the beauty is, if I just noticed that this little section over here wasn't quite done, and I can tell because it feels powdery and not and not smooth. So because I embossed with clear, I can go ahead and hit it again. Obviously, I've smeared a lot of that embossing powder all over. Now I'm just getting it to sink in. But it's clear powder, so it's not going to make as much of a difference. All right, so now we have our flower, and I'm not sure which way I want to put this. I think like this. That's one way of getting colored embossing. Now I'm going to show you another method. I'm bringing in a piece of basic black again, because this is going to allow some minor issues that I might have coloring You'll know what I mean in just a minute. Work my embossing buddy over it. I'm going to bring in the Embrace the Beauty of You sentiment. See if I can get that in one corner. I'm going to trim it down afterwards. Looks pretty straight. Pour on our embossing powder. Now with the white, I have found that the white embosses just a little bit differently. Once it melts fast, and it starts to melt into the cardstock a lot faster than some of the other colors. So when we see it start to turn, you gotta move. So remember, you'll know when it's melted when it gets shiny white. It's starting to go, so I'm moving it along. And it's done. I don't want to overheat it because it will sink in. So I love how the white on black shows up very nicely. But I thought, wow, wouldn't it be cool if we had a different color for maybe the U so that it stood out. I'm going to bring in my Stampin' Blend. Remember before how the Stampin' Blend, because it's an alcohol-based marker, it does dry quickly and it's not going to rub off. So look at how I can just come in and color that. And so that U stands out. Now maybe you want to do Embrace the Beauty of You, and the U is white. Let's see which one we prefer, shall we? So I'm gonna emboss buddy that other corner, especially since I've been holding on to it. We'll bring back in our sentiment stamp. Okay, that's a little crooked. So we'll have to do something if we're going to use it. All right. All right. So sometimes if you get a stray fleck, I think the flecks are actually on my hand. I'm actually adding more than I'm brushing off. Then you can brush it off with the brush that comes in the toolkit, or you can, sometimes if you flick the back, that works as well. And remember, as soon as it starts to melt, you move along. So I'm keeping a close eye. Oh, there it goes. So then I'm just moving on down the words. Moving on down, and the last bit of it is done. This really is so pretty. All right. Now, one of the reasons why we go with the black is because if I happen to get some of this marker on the cardstock, the black is going to absorb it. So nobody's going to be the wiser that I didn't stay right on top of my words, my letters. So embrace the beauty of, and remember, be very careful with the brush tip end. And I wasn't, I'm not coloring in between the bumps like I was on that other one. I'm coloring on top. And so that's why I can use the brush tip here. But you can also use the other end as well. So we've got the beauty of, oops, I missed a spot. Okay. Embrace the beauty of you. I missed another spot too. So full transparency, I've been gone for the whole weekend, and so this is the last card that I had to make. I made the other ones before I left for a few days away. And I was editing tonight, editing the ones that I'd made. And my storage got full on my computer. I tried to get rid of some stuff. Apparently, I got rid of all the wrong stuff. All my editing gone, so I had to start from scratch again. Fortunately, the videos themselves were on my phone. I could re-upload them, but man, what a pain in the butt. So, embrace the beauty of you or embrace the beauty of you. I feel like this does not accentuate the you enough. This one is a little bit better. And notice I can rub it and it doesn't come off. The color stays on there. So let's trim this and see what we get when we put it on our card. All right. So where will we put this? Could put this, I don't even know how this, oh, this looks pretty good, right? I think just like that. Let's bring in a base of Pretty Peacock. And we're gonna put that right on there, just like that. Now, I think it would be nice, perhaps, if we had a little black layer in between these, but this is gonna have to be trimmed in order to make that possible. All right, so here we have a little piece of black. I've trimmed down my white. Need my adhesive, which is right here. And I'll put this on here. And put this side on here. Oh yes, this looks lovely. If your Stampin' Seal doesn't run, just put your finger over the top and get it started a little bit more. It'll work great. All right, so I think we wanted, let me see. I don't want to cover up that beautiful flower. So let's do it this way. Yep, let's do it this way. Now we'll just put this up on dimensionals. Here we go. Embrace the beauty of you. Pretty simple card. This could also, I don't know if I'm going to get it off here. This could also go up here. But again, it's covering some of the nicer flowers, so we'll put it down there. Pretty simple card overall. Just need a piece for the inside. And what I'm going to do for the inside is I probably will just do a regular stamp of this big image here. I'll do it in the Pretty Peacock. There's probably still a little bit of ink left on this, but I'm going to stamp it again. Now, if I stamp this whole thing on there, it's going to be way too bright. So what I can do is go on the reverse side, stamp it, and then stamp it as a very subtle background for what I'm going to write on the inside. Now you may want to test this first because sometimes the second generation stamping is darker than this is. So I usually would probably test it first. I got pretty lucky. I didn't realize it was going to be this light. It's almost too light, but I'm going to put this right in here. Now we can write whatever we'd like on the inside. We have the embossed. Can you see the shine, especially from the centers there? And I can feel it. And then you've got the embossed image here, 2 colors. Thank you so much for watching. Now remember, if you want that class card kit, as well as access to a bonus tutorial and the card contents for that, then simply place your order by this Sunday, October 13th at 9 p.m. and I will send those out to you on Tuesday, the 15th. If you have any questions, please contact me. I would love to hear from it. And don't forget, if you have not yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, go ahead and subscribe and ring that little notification bell. That will tell you when I next upload content or come to you live. Have a great week, everybody. I will see you on Friday for Friday Night Live, 7:30, right here.